Hi there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. So we've been talking a lot about what Boba Fett's intentions are now that he's survived the Sarlacc Pit. We've talked about how he'll probably want to restore order in respect to the criminal underground. We've even talked about how potentially the Sarlacc Pit has melded mentally, emotionally, and sensually with Boba Fett. Ew. But let's be honest guys, deep down in this man's tortured and xeno-infiltrated brain are only two things. One,
the Polynesian Spa.
And two, a bounty hunter, especially a Mandalorian bounty hunter with a lineage to the true Mandalorians, will be a very professional individual. This means no emotions concerning their potential targets, because that complicates things. Over here we have exhibit number 1, Din Djarin and Baby Gaga. But Boba Fett's relationship with Han Solo is a very special one. The bounty hunter most likely saw Han Solo first in Jabba's palace after Han Solo screwed up a job for Jabba and dumped a bunch of spice into space after he's pulled over by a bunch of Imperials. Now, Boba Fett had probably seen hundreds of desperate individuals like Han and made a mental note on his appearance in case Jabba puts a bounty on his head later on, which is exactly what happens. But it wasn't really until Darth Vader put an even larger price on the Millennium Falcon that Boba Fett would actively start going after Han Solo. In Legends, Boba Fett actually really liked Han Solo the first time he saw him. He saw a lot of potential in the kid. But anyway, Boba Fett manages to track down Han Solo and delivers him and his crew right into Vader's arm on Bespin. Things were looking up for Boba Fett at the time. He had done a string of jobs for the Empire and they paid well for his services. Boba Fett had finally found the stability he was after he lost his father clone brother. And so when Boba Fett falls into the Sarlacc Pit, he falls from great heights, both literally and also figuratively as far as his career was going. And he gains very little from this experience as well, unless my theory about him having tentacles and being immortal now comes true. After escaping, Boba Fett would go on to take advantage of Jabba the Hutt's absence and begin carefully rebuilding his network of spice traders and smugglers. But I believe that Boba Fett will eventually run into or even go looking for Han Solo on his own. In Legends, this is what happens. Boba Fett emerges out of the Sarlacc, and once he recovers his memory, well, he remembers who put him there in the first place, and he's very angry about it. And then he uses the cover of death to slowly plan his revenge. Boba Fett even gets a new ship, the Slave 2, aka the Flying Toaster. And 4 years later, Boba Fett would emerge out of nowhere and take another bounty on Han Solo, surprising him. And he would get embarrassed once again. I believe Chewbacca even steals his helmet in the Legends version of this tale, which is probably the right size for a Wookiee cup, which can be filled with tequila and brandy. But in canon, where is Han Solo at this point? Well, from what we can tell, Boba Fett emerges out of the Sarlacc Pit before 9 ABY. That's when we first see him in The Mandalorian. Han Solo and Leia will be in the midst of starting a family. Ben Solo was born in 5 ABY on Chandrila. Han Solo at this point will be learning slowly how to be a husband and a new father. He's a little bit insecure about his son Ben Solo's connection to Leia through the Force because he's not Force sensitive, but he'll learn quickly that him and Ben will have their own special connection through the Force. Around 7 ABY, which might be when Boba Fett first emerges from the Sarlacc Pit, Han Solo and Lando drop everything they're doing to stop Friesen Gore in his diabolical droid apocalypse plan using the Phalanx Redux transmitter, which could infect droids around it with a virus, turning them into mindless killing machines. The Solo's culinary device actually gets infected by this virus and almost cuts up Ben Solo as if he were some produce, but luckily Han Solo destroys the Phalanx Redux transmitter before that happens. For a while, Han Solo would continue playing house and he'd bring his friends along with him. Lando Calrissian, or Anka Wanwo as he was known to Ben, would play a huge role in young Ben's life, as would Uncle Chewie, who taught Ben how to fly a speeder and fire a blaster. With this support system in place, Han Solo started wandering around a bit. He was restless. He started mentoring young pilots.
You're offering me a job.
I'm thinking about it.
He also dreamed that one day young Ben would help him repair his hyperdrive on the Millennium Falcon because it never worked, and that one day young Ben would get a ship of his own. He wanted Ben Solo to follow his footsteps as an adventurer instead of being a Jedi like his uncle Luke. And that's what young Ben Solo wanted as well. He really loved Han Solo's golden dice, and he had a knack for piloting ships just like his father and his grandfather Anakin. But like all families in the developed parts of the galaxy, a busy life meant that childcare was usually relegated to nannies, in this case, droid nannies. And so Ben Solo would grow more and more lonely, and he would feel abandoned by his parents, which kind of opens the door for Snoke, who arrives in a gray van with the offer of free candy. In Leia's defense, she was actually doing important things and trying to stabilize the fledgling New Republic and, prevent it from collapsing. Unfortunately for Han Solo, he was just an absent father. Being a husband and a father was just not in the cards for him. The man was born a street urchin, survived as an illegal goods transporter, and thrived as a general of the rebellion. All very exciting things. Changing diapers for a young Ben Solo and then making dinner or telling your droid to make dinner for your powerful wife senator who's trying to rebuild the entire galaxy is just not something that Han Solo wants to do. He does give it a shot, but ultimately the inner rogue comes out. And so Han Solo would try his luck with starship racing. And of course he would immediately be successful and compete and win in many tournaments. He even revisits Corellia to compete in the famous gauntlet. At the same time, he would start operating his own shipping company, a very legitimate shipping company with a reputation for having a vigilant and responsible owner. Han would spend days and then weeks and then months and then years just traveling around the galaxy pursuing adventure and coin, just like the old days. Which places Han Solo in the perfect position to receive a visit from Boba Fett, who at this point in time is still traveling around the galaxy carefully convincing criminal organizations to join under him. One of the criminals we actually see in the trailer is an Ithorian sitting at a throne. Could this potentially be Dok-Ondar, the individual who hires Han Solo a few years before to capture those Sarlaccs we talked about in our last video? Dok-Ondar isn't exactly crime lord material, but he is quite respected and feared within the community on Batuu. And he has his own supply of enforcers to chase down individuals who betray or try to cheat him out of money. His connection to Han Solo might be something that Boba Fett is after. But then again, Han Solo is probably pretty easy to track down. He's relatively famous at this point in time, and he's running two excellent companies, one in transport and one in racing. And so the question is, will Boba Fett wait until he solidifies his criminal organizations before moving against such an important celebrity figure? Han Solo continues to be one of the few blemishes in his otherwise perfect reputation. And reputation means everything in the Fett's world, and it was the one thing that Jango Fett would hammer into Boba Fett constantly throughout their time together. So whether it's revenge or just protecting his reputation, I do believe that Boba Fett is fated to kind of meet with Han Solo once again in the future. Now, how Disney will pull this off is a whole nother issue. Maybe they can de-age Han Solo's face, but I feel like Harrison Ford doesn't really want to come back. Or maybe they can make Alden Ehrenreich older. I know a lot of you guys hated his version of Solo, but he did sign on for 3 films, so he's an option as well. Or perhaps they could just hire someone completely new to fill the position. Either way, I'd be really happy to see Han Solo come back. He's one of my favorite characters, as you all know. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about my theory. Will he come back? And also don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.